There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
With everything that Trump has said and done, from calling for protesters to be beaten and deported.
In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough.
To deporting U.S. citizens, including children with cancer. We almost forgot about the real-life Handmaid's Tale alive and well in places like Texas. And now Texas is back in the news, and this time it's off the charts. In Texas, where nearly every abortion is illegal, the state police are now tracking down a woman who received an abortion in Texas and then left the state. And now Texas police are tracking her across the U.S. using a database of license plate readers outside of Texas, even in states where abortion is legal. They are conducting a nationwide hunt for a woman who had an abortion.
If it feels like you are being tracked, it may be because you are. At red lights, going in and out of the office, on your smartphone. But what if you could be tracked seeking a legal abortion simply by your license plate?
I don't think people realize how much of their personal data is collected, that their whereabouts are tracked.
That's why Illinois Secretary of State Alexi Janulius backs what he says is a first-in-the-nation bill to outlaw sharing or selling license plate data for women seeking abortions.
Who has access to license plate trackers?
A number of private and public entities have this personal, sensitive data.
Data he fears could be weaponized as some states try to criminalize helping someone get an abortion, even in a state where it is legal. 3 other states have passed laws aimed at protecting health data from such efforts.
When they travel, whether it's to an abortion clinic or the grocery store, we need to make sure this data is protected.
Illinois Right to Life Executive Director Mary Kate Zander opposes abortion.
Do you think this bill is necessary?
I think it's unnecessary. They're trying to create a narrative around what the pro-life movement may or may not be doing in this.
She says her organization is not trying to criminalize women seeking the procedure.
Is the Right to Life movement tracking license plates of women?
No.
Absolutely
not.
Has it done that in the past?
No,
Do you
absolutely
see it doing that in the future?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's just not a tactic that we would use.
With a quarter of their patients now from out of state, Illinois Planned Parenthood CEO Jennifer Welch is not convinced.
Patients need to know that when they come for health care, that information won't be shared with anybody, law enforcement, activists, anybody else.
Data collection and privacy, a new frontier in the nation's fight over abortion rights.
These pro-life groups say one thing, but that's not what they're doing.
Today, abortion rights advocates in Texas released audio from a Texas Alliance for Life training event that took place just before the trial began. In it, speakers talked about their strategies when they protest outside of abortion clinics. Specifically, they talked about keeping a log of who is going in and coming out of those clinics.
We can track the number of women who choose life, the number of mothers who choose life. We can also track who works there. Who is your abortionist? How do we know who had privileges? Well, you do that. It's totally legal. You track license plates.
That group uses the license plate information to make sure clinics follow the law, specifically the one requiring women wait 24 hours after a sonogram before an abortion. Still, abortion rights advocates say any sort of tracking is dangerous because abortion providers have been targeted in the past. NARAL Pro-Choice Texas Executive Director Heather Busby said in a statement, with fewer clinics in Texas after laws passed last year, it is easier for anti-abortion protesters to, quote, stalk women. She says Texas women not only have to travel hundreds of miles, but once they reach a clinic, they must confront the very real threat posed by these anti-abortion activists.
What makes this even more outrageous is a woman's abortion was self-induced using mifepristone. But her family didn't want her to have the abortion, so they called the cops, which led to a dragnet bigger than they use for most bank robberies. So there's a be on the lookout, not for the dangerous illegals the Republicans blather about, but instead for a woman who exercised her right as a human being. And the idea the cops are actively tracking the location of a woman who had a self-administered abortion, and add to that 26% of abortion prosecutions occurred in Texas after a family member or an acquaintance reported a woman to law enforcement. In fact, if you drove her to get the abortion, they could prosecute you too.
A bill in Colombia could make the death penalty a possible punishment for women in South Carolina who get an abortion.
And the science says self-managed abortions are extremely safe. What's not safe is when women are put into the system, a system of state violence and criminalization. But that's not deterring Texas.
A North Texas lawmaker is sponsoring a bill that could have women facing the death penalty for having an abortion. That's right. Not only would abortions be banned, they would become a serious crime. Arlington Republican Tony Tinderholt is the lawmaker behind this bill. He says it would accomplish one goal, bringing equal treatment for unborn human beings under the law.
Texas has a dozen bills advancing in their state legislature that call from everything for the death penalty for women and doctors involved in abortions to literally jailing women for 9 months who seek an abortion and are arrested.
And what I'm specifically talking about is the Republican MAGA party, led by convicted felon Donald Trump and his supporters and his sycophants that still support him. Specifically, there is a guy named Jeff Durbin in Arizona, and he is the leader of the Republican opposition to the Arizona measure to protect abortion rights. And here is what he said.
Abortion should be considered a crime. It should be considered murder. You're unjustly taking the life of a human being, and so that's murder. And what I've said is what is the historic position of the Christian church, that if you take the life of a human being unjustly, then what the state owes you, if it's proven and it's true, is capital punishment. You forfeit your right to live.
What in the literal fuck?
The truth is, the men in states like South Carolina, where you can't legally rape your wife, but they've never prosecuted a man for it, now wants to end the life of that very woman who was raped by her husband and ended the pregnancy. And to add insult to injury, not only would South Carolina execute a woman for having an abortion, but if she is raped and forced to have the baby, wait for it, the convicted rapist could appeal the state for visitation rights and possible custody hearings.
And the idea that women who get abortions should be prosecuted for homicide and could face the death penalty, is that something that you supported?
I do support that. I support it in the sense of I think we ought to have, I would like to see South Carolina as the most conservative state in the nation.
So you would support the death penalty for a woman who took an abortion?
I don't know how it would be implemented, quite frankly.
That's totalitarianism. That's going beyond really anything that exists inside the sort of regular parameters of any democratic state. That's totalitarianism.
I think people have a choice. You have a choice to practice safe sex and the such. So you have a choice, initially.
And Donald Trump is the only candidate running for president who you believe will embody those sorts of extremes?
I think Donald Trump, I hate to say those extremes, I think what Donald Trump is willing to do is actually speak out against the establishment.
But on a more positive note, I have some good news. First, let's talk about Medicare coverage. It is confusing by design, with fine print pushing plans that may or may not fit your needs. And because of this, people regularly end up on the wrong plan, and it costs them thousands more each year, and sometimes even puts access to their doctors or medications at risk. And believe me, I know, I just went through this. Fortunately, though, I discovered Chapter, and I want to tell you all about it. So if I can, please let me break it down for you. Chapter is the only national Medicare advisor that compares every available plan, so you can be sure you're seeing all of your options, not just a select few. And this is so important. Chapter is completely independent and always advocating for you and not the insurance companies. The process is quick and simple, and most people get answers and are enrolled in the right plan in under an hour. And when you call, you talk to an honest, patient, and unbiased advisor who walk you through everything step by step. The call's free, there's no pressure to sign. If you're already on the right plan, Chapter will tell you right then. Simple as that. So call Chapter right now. There's a number on the screen, 816-953-0071. That's 816-953-0071. Hey, and guess what? One less thing to worry about. So the landscape in America is changing, but it's not good. States like Alabama, Mississippi, and yes, Texas have introduced bills that would give husband or parents the right to lock up pregnant women with no probable cause until they give birth. And Georgia proposed making it legal to cross state lines and arrest pregnant women who left the state to get an abortion. And in New Hampshire, when they tried to raise the legal age of marriage from 15 to 18, Republicans balked because they thought 15-year-olds who got pregnant should just settle down and get married. What country is this? If you don't think any of this could happen, then you underestimate the evil in these men's hearts. They believe they own women. And I know something about women. I was raised by 4 sisters and a single mom. My mother died a few years ago at 98, but when she was in her 20s, she went to court to protest a parking ticket because the parking sign was obstructed by a tree. And she was denied access to the courtroom that day, wait for it, because she was wearing pants and not a dress. So she went home, called an attorney, and came back to court, still in slacks. She won that day, and I think of her when I see these little boys, these cuckolds to the almighty fat one. And all I can think of is, good for them. They never met my mother.
Suck my fat one, you cheap dime store hood.
Goddamn right.
You're a nasty person.
We're a nation that speaks English.
Back and look, if something like this, that thing start goggling.
Tariff.
You're an idiot!
Drop your pants.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes!
Tick-tock!
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.